the melding of our two ways of thinking and looking at different things creates a more holistic view, whereas your view by itself is missing a part and my view by itself is missing a part too. And I think really that's what kind of brought us together, in the fact that we, it sounds very cliche and very rom-com like, but
how 1 and 1 create
3.
What if the thing that annoys you most about your partner is actually the reason your relationship works? Not in a cute way, in a real, practical, this actually makes your life better kind of way. Because most people think compatibility means being similar. Same pace, same habits, and guess what? Same ways of thinking. But that's actually not really what creates growth. So I want to try something a little bit different here today. In this episode today, I actually brought somebody very special in. I have my husband Josh here with me. Thanks so much for doing this here with me today.
You bet. Happy to be here.
So we're going to talk through this in real time. And my husband, he's basically going to chime in from his side. 26 years ago, we met each other. So because on paper, we're actually really, really different. I move fast. I like structure. And I also plan everything. And Josh, he's not like that. Josh, how would you describe yourself?
Well, you're kind of the planner. You set the structure up, and then I'm kind of the doer. I'm the one that puts it into motion and makes it happen.
Yeah. So if you look at that in terms of compatibility, it used to actually drive me a little crazy. When we met each other, I would be like ready to decide. I would be like, let's go. And then Josh would just pause and he would ask questions. And I felt like slowing things down. And I remember thinking, why are we making this harder than it needs to be? But over time, I realized that there's something very important here. The pause is actually making things better, not slower. It's making it better. So Josh, let me ask you this. When you think about what is something about me that feels completely opposite to you, and now you see it as a strength in our relationship?
Well, like I said, you really like to visionary, very creative, and I'm not saying that I'm not creative, but I'm a little bit more of like, give me the details and I'm going to figure out how to chop it up and make it work. How do I schedule everything, or how do I organize the process based upon what your vision is that we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so it actually balances things out. I'm the planner, you're the doer. And that's the shift if you think about it this way. Instead of asking, why are we so different? We started asking, how does this actually work together? Because the truth is, if you are someone who moves fast, like what I like to do, you don't need more speed. You need a pause. And if you're someone who pauses a lot, you don't need more thinking. So what we're really getting at here is that we need movement. You need a little bit of both. That's the opposite way of looking at this. In reality, what really helps is that where growth happens is when you're combining the speed with a pause. So, Josh, next question for you. And again, thanks for doing this here today. If you think that in our relationship, there was ever a moment where my way of doing things really frustrated you, now is the time. Tell us.
Well, I think every relationship, you have your highs, your lows, your differences, and it's looking at the greater picture of, so maybe you have a different perspective than I do, and perspective is always 100% accurate, right? Your perspective is your perspective, and I can't change that, nor can you change mine. But it's the understanding that, you know, we've proven so many different times, whether it be on trips or whether it's trying to figure out what we're going to eat for dinner, or just simple things like that, of the melding of our two ways of thinking and looking at different things creates a more holistic view, whereas your view by itself is missing a part and my view by itself is missing a part too. And I think really that's what kind of brought us together, in the fact that we, it sounds very cliche and very rom-com like, but that we kind of complete each other a little bit, that we were missing something each individually, but coming together we're a couple, even though we are separate individuals at the same right.
I love that. This is so cute. Like how 1 and 1 create
3.
Because we are better together than we would have been individually. I really like that. That's really the way that we look at that. And that is such a good example how you brought this up, even with small decisions with dinner. Because sometimes in the moment, it can feel like tension, even when it comes down to what should we make for dinner?
Even driving in a car, sometimes we get into did you see that car over there? Why aren't you stopping this time?
So later, you see the result and you kind of like think a little bit about it, like, oh, actually, this is really good how we looked at it in 2 different perspectives. You act and then the clarity comes later. So if you look at it this way, something isn't working and you don't keep repeating it. You just change the input. You try a different move. And that's exactly what opposites do. You don't keep repeating what you did. You just put things together a little bit differently and introduce a different move. So instead of both of us moving fast or both of us pausing to think, the combination is really what works. So Josh, last question for you. What do you think people misunderstand about opposites in relationships?
I don't know. I've never really thought about that very much. What do people misunderstand about opposites? I think sometimes they can't see the forest for the trees, in a sense, is that they only see their own perspective and how they feel without being able to outwardly look or sense maybe of what, if I say something that's hurtful to you, I could just be like, well, screw it. I don't necessarily care. It's not my feelings. I don't feel the same way. But I think it's good to have empathy and sympathy for one another, being opposites, to understand that the opposite of the way you think helps give you a better rounded picture of everything. Again, going back to coming together makes us more whole than it is by our own thought process and ourselves.
Yeah, so I think sometimes people see differences as problems to fix instead of as something that can actually help you if you use it in the right way. So if you think about it this way, audience, that's really it. That's the whole point. That opposites do really complement each other. Most people try to turn differences into sameness, where in reality, differences are really what makes the world go round. Sameness doesn't stretch you. It keeps you comfortable with who you are. And comfort feels good until you need to grow. So here's the takeaway I want you to leave with. Where in your life are you resisting the opposite? Think about it and share it with me in the comments. Until the next time.